For those of you unfamiliar with the sport of rowing, it's the embodiment of teamwork. Since most of you have never been in a boat, let me paint a picture. You're sitting in the boat, in line with everyone else. You follow your teammates with every motion that they make, precisely following the timing and the exact motions. You try and keep balance with them, not just your own balance, but as a whole. You don't want the boat to tip or to move too far left or right, otherwise it slows you down. Not only that, but it's hard. You have to pull hard with every stroke. You're teetering at the edge of exhaustion, but you keep pulling hard. You expect that they do the same thing to get the boat across the finish line. Even the name for a collective group of rowers, a crew, symbolizes teamwork. But before we delve too deep into rowing, let me first explain how I ended up on this stage. I'm a Kansas City native, but when it came time for college, I decided to move out to the University of Colorado in Boulder. It gave me an opportunity to try something new. Once there, I looked for a new hobby, and that led me to join the rowing team. I quickly found out it wasn't a hobby, but a very challenging sport. Each morning we practiced at 6 a.m. out on the water. That meant starting practice under the stars and the moon, and hopefully getting a sunrise by the end of practice. If it was cloudy, it was a loss. So I stayed there and rowed for a while, learning what I could about rowing. After a semester, I came back to Kansas City to attend here at the University of Kansas City, Missouri. Luckily for me, I found a new rowing club, because as anyone from the Midwest can attest, rowing's pretty rare around here. It is quite literally far and few in between with all the rowing clubs here. So I rowed with the Kansas City Rowing Club up at Wyandotte County Lake for about half a year. After then, it was summertime, and we were looking for new ways to get more students like me involved in the sport of rowing. That led to the personal challenge of me trying to find a way to find new rowers. So I saw that as an endeavor. I decided to start a rowing team here at the university. It's easier in thought, but in practice it's very difficult, which I quickly found out. Sophomore year started, and I started a rowing team. Lots of meetings, lots of administrative side of it, all while juggling classes. It became tougher and more time-consuming than I could have ever imagined. It became a crucible, actually, a difficult endeavor that changed me by the end. I learned new skills and traits that my science degrees never touched on. Stuff such as political skills, business skills, communication skills, all while continuing to earn my degrees in biology and chemistry. But what I learned most is that rowing is very much like life. There's a few attributes that can be applied to life itself and can better your life. Specifically, I learned unexpected insights as to how the traditions of rowing, the dogmas per se, the leadership of rowing, and the inclusivity of rowing can all be applied to life to change how you look at different and new tasks. So the classes started. My classmates were worried about their cellular biology and organic chemistry tests. I worried about those too, but I was more worried about how I was going to get the rowing team started. I had to recruit new people. I had to find equipment, purchase it. And if any of you know, rowing equipment is very expensive. A full-size boat, brand new, runs in upwards of $40,000, more than an average car. For that reason, we have to insure it. I knew nothing about insurance. My biology degree does not cover insurance. So I learned a little bit about insurance, just enough to get them insured. Additionally, I had to find regattas for us to attend, which is the fancy name for boat races. As I said, there are very few of them in the Midwest, so we have to travel a bit of a ways. We also founded a few of our own. So I continued to work on that. But as I worked more with the rowing team and started to build it, I realized that it has its own community. It has its own culture, per se, filled with its own dogmas or mindsets and traditions. So to understand the mindset of a rower, let's go back to the mental image. You're in the boat with the rowers, but you're facing the opposite way that the boat goes. When you take off from the starting line, you're actually continuing to stare at the starting line instead of the finish line. You face backwards. The only person who's facing forward is the coxswain, who's the small-statured person, usually in the back of the boat, looking over you, steering the boat. They have a microphone instead of an oar. This creates a new way or a way to reset how you view teamwork. Though the rowers hold all the power, pulling the oars to move the boat, they don't know what they're doing without the coxswain instructing them. This creates a very common metaphor of the rowers being muscle and the coxswain being the brain of the boat. Additionally, the rowers don't see their competitors until they pass them because they're facing the starting line. During the course of the race, this means that it's a blind game of catch-up. The rowers just pull hard, focusing only on what's in the boat, and the coxswain sends encouragements to them, telling them when to pull harder, when to pull harder on one side versus the other to get around the team, whatever it may be. For the spectator, you guys at this point, rowing may seem very tranquil or peaceful, but in reality, it's not. Inside the mind of a rower during a race, it's a very chaotic system. You're trying to balance, you're trying to pull hard, you're trying to follow the timing of the person in front of you. If there's a slight wake, you have to adjust to it on the water. They're doing this they're juggling all these aspects while at the very edge of exhaustion. Rowing's very competitive, and it's very unique in that the rowers have created a mentality where you have to stay at the edge of exhaustion to win the race. So all this contributes to a steep learning curve for rowing. Anyone can try rowing. We have rowers that are high school and we have rowers that are in their 80s. Anyone can do it and pull at their own strength. But the steep learning curve exists because all you do, as I said, is row. There's no defenders to try and learn tricks to get past. There's no formations to learn. You row, you sit down, and you pull the oar over and over the course of the race. But not just the race. To get to the starting line, you have to row. Same thing. To get from the finish line to the dock again, you row. For the rower, all you do is row. But once you learn how to row, the simple stroke, then you're just perfecting it, finding ways to make it very, very efficient to get those few milliseconds off your time to beat the competition. Additionally, you have the jargon of rowing. You have the different directions of the boat, like the port, star, or starboard, as we're supposed to say, the bow and the stern. You have the parts of the boat, the riggers, the backstays, the oarlocks. And then you have the calls that the coxswain's yelling at you throughout the race. Take a touch here, hold water here, or power 10, which is the dreaded, give it even more than you're already giving 100%. So this quick proficiency contributes to letting anyone start rowing, but it takes years to master. This simple mindset, though, allows for rowing to be propagated all across the globe. Anyone can row, and it's been around for a long time. Per se, as long as there's been two boats powered by humans, there's been boat races. Over the years, they developed their own traditions, specifically at the regattas, the fancy boat races. The first one of interest is shirt betting. On the water, the boats are competing for the final prize, the gold medal, the trophy, the plaque, whatever it may be. But additionally, they've thrown in gambling, which is very uncommon in collegiate sports. With each race, the rowers gamble the shirt they wear. It may not be the specific shirt, but a shirt of their own, displaying the team crest. Now, this means more than just a shirt. This is your team crest. This is what you fought all season to get the right to wear. All your perseverance, all the early practices, rowing in the cold, the hot, everything, just to get the right to wear that crest. And now you're gambling it away, just to see if you can win. At the end of the race, whoever wins the race gets a pile of those shirts from all the people they defeated. The victor stands there with a pile of shirts, taking it home, signifying that they're either rowed for those teams, because they have the crest on their chest, or they're better than that team. They beat it in a regatta. They do this on equal ground, upholding the camaraderie of rowing. You don't throw them your shirt and walk away. You meet them on the fair ground after you put your boat away. You walk up to them and you give them the shirt. You let them know that they are the victor and they beat you this round. That's why there's always the next race. The next interesting tradition is the cox throw. At the race, you have the coxswain who's steering the boat, the brain. What better way to display your superiority and strength after winning a race than to throw your figurative brain back into the river that you just won? That's developed the cox throw. Sometimes the coxswain is more adamant about this, where they'll let you do it, or they won't, just depending on if it's October and the water temperature is barely above freezing, or if it's the summer and it's really hot, but the water is really dirty. No matter how the environment is, they always are there, letting the throwers throw them into the water as motivation to get them down the line as fast as possible. So when I was founding the team, I tried to ignore the traditions. I figured they'd happen on their own. Why bother trying to set them? I just wanted to get the team established and I'd figure that out later. But I realized the traditions themselves and the dogma are what establishes rowing as a community. It binds the rowers to each other into the greater rowing community across the world and throughout the nation. So we took a new aspect. We decided to start our own traditions. We created team trophies to create sort of a longevity of the team between the seasons. We also started outreach events at our lake. We did one of the most favorites, which is the parent row. We put our parents and friends in the boat that we row. There's nothing more boosting of your confidence after spending hours each week sitting in a boat trying to learn the stroke than to throw your parents in the same boat and watch them struggle to row. Something that you can now do with ease without even thinking. You can have a laugh at them. By resetting how we viewed the traditions and the establishment of the team, we looked to establish a community, not just a competitive rowing program. From that, we created a better experience for everyone, something that they wanted to be a part of, a better team morale. So touching back on what I said at the beginning, rowing is the epitome of motivation. I can guarantee that if any of you walk through a hospital, a school, or even a library, you'll see those typography posters where it's a monochromatic, either sepia or black and white photo of something obscure, and then you have the big word underneath that says teamwork, leadership. Sometimes it's even soft skills like happiness or friends. But I can almost guarantee that wherever you go, you'll see a poster of rowers. Typically, it's paired with words like perseverance or teamwork. And that's no coincidence. Without the teamwork and perseverance of the whole team working together, you can't row effectively. So, while starting the team, I realized that I fell into a very similar trap that most people fall in when it comes to leadership. I tried to do everything by myself. I figured it'd be easier for me just to do it myself than to try and ask for help or get someone else to help me. But that became a problem. For example, one of the traditions in rowing is to paint your oar blades different from everyone else. On the water, you barely see much of the boat because it sits so low in the water. Each team looks the same. So how do you distinguish the boats? We figured out over the years, not me, but the rowing community, that you paint the oars differently. That way, each team has a distinctive oar blade color that when you see it coming down the lane, you know which team is coming. Though some are complicated and some are simple, I decided to make our own. And there's ours. It takes the UMKC colors and makes a simple stripe design. But if any of you were to try and replicate this blade, you'd realize that there's a twofold problem in how I designed them. We'll look at some other blades for an example. So here are the two other blades I rowed with, the University of Colorado above and the Kansas City Rowing Club below. Something that's distinctive in theirs versus mine is that they have a single primary color and then stripes, but the stripes are either single color or they're not touching. Unlike the UMKC ones, they can paint the single color, tape for the striping, paint that, and then be done. If we look at the UMKC blades though, I have to paint them yellow, tape for one of the stripes, paint them, let it cure, tape it again, paint it, and so it ends up taking more than twice as long as it should just because I overlooked something in designing it. If I would have reached out for help or contributed from other people, that would have been avoided. Additionally, there's the job security side that's often overlooked when doing something individualistically. I decided to paint the oars myself, but then only I know how to paint them now. As soon as I graduate and move on to other things, the team has to figure out how to paint the oars for themselves. Though this may seem minor in the case of painting the oars, if I continue to do this individualistic thinking, it creates bigger problems within the rowing team when they try to replicate it. So I realized that it takes a collaborative effort to lead a team. Leadership is more often a collaborative effort than individualistic, something that I reset the team value on and we move forward there to make a better team. Next, we'll look at the hierarchy of the team. It's very rigid and for good reason. At the top, you have the coach. They create the rowing plans for each practice, deciding how far you're going to row, what rate you're going to row at, and all that. They're also following the rowing shells in a launch boat or a motorized boat to keep up with the rowers without them having to row as well. Some view that as lazy, but they have to do it. Additionally, the coach is ensuring the safety of the team. They relay the messages of the practices to the coxswains. The coxswains then are in charge of their individual boat to make sure that that distance is followed, that stroke rate is set, or whatever it may be. The coxswain is the imperative brain of the boat. They pass those messages on to the rowers in their boat. The rowers do as instructed the first time without question. They continue to row until the coxswain says stop, even if it means rowing into a bridge. Because they are the muscles, they don't think. It just upholds the understanding that the coxswain is the brain and the rowers are the muscle. So this division of power is imperative. It allows each person to complete their task that they need to do. The coach sets the practices and the safety. The coxswain runs the boat, and then the rowers make the boat go. It's imperative, but there's also a sense of sacrifice. The rowers have no say in what happens at practice. They just do it. But alternatively, the coxswain doesn't get to do anything other than maybe steer a little, but they do all the thinking. We applied this same mentality to the leadership of the team. Each person has their set goals of what they need to do, and we don't try to step onto their toes and get in the way of what they're trying to do. So we reset the team leadership that way, which created a better system. Everyone was able to do what they needed to do, when they needed to do it, without question. Finally, let's look at the inclusivity of rowing. If any of you were to Google rowing, you see a problem. And this is a stereotype that I tried to reset from the very beginning when I started founding the team. You Google the term rowing team, and as I'm sure most of you pictured when I started talking about rowing, you get lots of tall, white males. That's pretty much all the rowing community is. It's female as well, but as Google shows, it's predominantly visualized as white males. There is one person of color in the middle, but predominantly, as you see, it's white males. Rowing is occasionally featured in movies, and let me say that we rowers get very excited when it is, but it continues to do the same thing. The rowing is seen as predominantly white males. Examples of this are The Social Network and The Theory of Everything. The Winklevoss twins in The Social Network are two large white males. In The Social Network, Stephen Hawking is a coxswain, but he's also a white male. And this isn't just medial portrayal of rowing. If you look at any of the regattas, you predominantly see coming down the lanes boats of white males or females, but it's really hard to find anyone of color, whether on the race course or getting ready or even watching the races. So that's something that we tried to change with rowing at UMKC. Since rowing has little footing in the Midwest already, we decided to recruit everyone, regardless of any prior experience, which in most cases, none. Though this stands as a big problem when we're training, we have to get everyone up that steep learning curve very fast to keep up with the other teams that try to recruit primarily rowers. We make it a program where no one feels ostracized because they come from a background that doesn't row or it doesn't have the ability to row. Additionally, we tried to do the same with finances. As I'm sure most of you thought, rowing is an Ivy sport. It's expanded more of that now, but traditionally it's an Ivy sport for the ultra-rich people. As I said, the boats are $40,000 or more if you want to personalize them. So what we do at UMKC Rowing is we try to have the university foot some of the bills of the equipment and insurance so that nothing stands in the way of letting someone row if they can't afford it. So for me personally, founding the team on these principles of inclusivity have opened new doors. I met new people and formed new relationships with people I would have never otherwise met, both on the large and small scale. So in conclusion, rowing and starting the rowing team has taught me innumerable lessons. But most importantly, the positive dogmas and traditions that facilitate rowing are what connects the community of rowing to each other. Secondly, the leadership needs to be a collaborative effort, not individualistic. And thirdly, the inclusivity is critical for the advancement of the sport, both on the small and large scale. So through the broad lens, rowing is very boring. As I said, you just sit down and you pull on the oar over and over from the time you sit in the boat at the dock till the time you get back to the dock afterwards. But this is very similar to life. In life, you do a lot of repetitive tasks, but you make preparations along the way. In rowing, you spend constant time rowing, spending hundreds to thousands of hours on the rowing machines or on the water, just rowing miles, kilometers, thousands of those. In life, you make preparations and investments in education. All those come down to few defining moments. For rowing, those are the races. Each race may only last about 6 minutes, and there's only a handful of them in your career, but all the preparations you make up to those points are what comes down to those races, just like in life. So in my final word, I'd like to impart a little advice. And that's what I learned while sculling in a single boat, which is the most tippy of the boats because you have just a single person with an oar on either side. It's a very thin, narrow boat and very long. And that is, while rowing around on Wyandotte County Lake, which is full of fishermen with high-powered speedboats, you see a lot of wakes, which is not good for the rower when you have about that far between the surface of the water and the top of your boat. So when you see a wake coming, either on the water or in life, just sit tall. Ride through the deterrence until you're comfortable again, and then just power down the course or to whatever your goal in life may be. And finally, I want to invite you all to the boatyard, either the local one or wherever you come from. Try out rowing. It's a beautiful sport, and let's see what you can learn from it. Thank you.